Hello and welcome to the Raw review here on Wrestling with Regret. Last week, Randy Orton brutalized a returning Edge and sent him back to the year 2011 with a possibly re-injured neck, courtesy of a one-man concerto. I feel like last week, I need to apologize because I didn't really do a good job articulating just how good that segment really was. I mean, that was, if you watch one thing from Raw last week, watch that closing bit with Orton and Edge, because that was some strong stuff. Very gripping, kind of hard to watch at times because of the connotations, the neck injury and whatnot. But I mean, with the story there and how they build it and how it's set up from the night before, it's just great storytelling, a really powerful way to close up that show. So go do yourself a favor. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, or just watch the recap they show you here on Monday Night Raw. Anyway, this week, the idea is Orton's going to explain his actions. And I don't know what he's got to explain. He's Randy Orton. He does what he does. Anyway, there's a very vocal crowd here, and it's a common thing throughout the entire night. They shower him with booze. They chant stuff at him. He can barely get his words out. And so Orton spends about a minute or so trying to, find the words. The fans won't let him speak, and he's milking it too. He knows what he's doing, so he'll work the crowd. He'll start saying something, and he gets more booze and everything. Then he finally says, "I can't do it." He drops the mic and walks away, and that's pretty much it. So and it's interesting because the commentary does a good job kind of turning. Not in favor of him, but almost changing their opinion of him. Because at first they're going, oh, how reprehensible, how evil he is and everything. What could he possibly do to explain himself? And then Lawler, who he's a heel commentator, but I think he plays kind of the voice of reason here, where he suggests that maybe Orton is having some remorse. I mean, that's probably not what the case is, but that's kind of the vibe we're supposed to be getting from this segment here. It obviously leaves us with more questions and answers going into the future weeks and stuff. They say that we might hear back from Edge as early as next week to continue this thing going. I will say my favorite part of this was after his music's done playing, you see Orton on the corner. Let's see, he's going to pose for a minute. I thought he was just going to pose and leave without saying a word, which would have been hilarious heel stuff, but instead he just goes through what he does. So it turned out a bit different than what I expected, but I think it was still very effective where he doesn't quite explain it. He didn't go the cliche route of, I don't have to explain anything to you people, like we see so often with heel turns in WWE, but this one was, I think, pretty well done. It's the rematch of the century as Liv Morgan takes on Lana. I believe this match actually takes less time than it did last week, but it ends the same way. Liv hitting her off the ropes flatliner onto Lana to win the matchup. Afterward, who shows up but Ruby Riott? We have not seen her on TV in almost a full year, about 9 months, they said on commentary. She had double shoulder surgery, but the minute she came out, I went, I wonder who's going to turn on who. Sure enough, Ruby goes in for a hug and bam, sneak attack to Liv, takes her out while Lana watches on, then Lana gloats afterward and everything. Why? Why do we have this happening here? It just rings so hollow to me because we just saw last week a case of a friend betraying a friend after a long absence together with Orton and Edge. And now we're seeing this very watered down version of it between Ruby and Liv, who, by the way, we still have no idea what the connection is between Lana and Liv from the wedding, and I'm going to keep bringing that up until they give us an explanation on that. So where does Ruby fit into all this? Is she now Lana's muscle? Where, what, where, why, how? So many questions here, but I'm not feeling good about this at the moment, just because the turn of Ruby, it's so poorly timed compared to what we just saw last week with a much more compelling turn. We get a Drew McIntyre recap, and then we see him in action against the 24/7 champion Mojo Rawley. It's not a title match, which defeats the purpose of a 24/7 championship, by the way. Drew's promo goes far longer than the match itself. He even calls his shot by telling Mojo at the beginning, hey, when this bell rings, I'm going to kick you, and I'm going to win. And sure enough, he cuts his promo on Lesnar. He does the Claymore right away, and doesn't even take his robe off. He pins Mojo. Pray for Mojo. But Drew looks strong as hell, so at least there's that. Backstage, Charlie Caruso interviews Bud Murph and AOP, and Murphy says that the Messiah Maniacs already have the match won. Seth Rollins comes in and cuts his little promo, says his piece about his involvement in the triple threat match later in the night, saying he's already beaten Brock Lesnar twice for a championship, and he's going to do it again at Super Showdown. Our next matchup is a 6-man elimination match as Kevin Owens and the Viking Raiders take on Buddy Murphy and AOP. Rollins is at ringside during the matchup and is very instrumental here. He hits Eric with the stomp when the referee's not looking, booking, so Eric is the first one eliminated. At the same time, Ivar is removed from the match due to an injury after he throws himself into the LED board and misses his target. So it's 3-on-1 for Kevin Owens, once again fighting the odds, fighting valiantly too. He eliminates Buddy with a pop-up powerbomb, eliminates Akam with the stunner. He's not able to put Razor away though. Rollins does kind of distract him again, so then Razor hits 2 spine busters in a row to win the match for the Messiah Maniac. So man, Kevin just week after week cannot catch a break against Rollins and his crew, but the ovation he gets from the crowd after he gets up and after the match is over is just, it's one of the biggest pops of the whole show, is the reaction he gets for his valiant fight. And so this fight's still going on, and where it's gonna lead to here, who knows? Back to the backstage we go, where Ricochet is being interviewed about that triple threat match later in the night, and Ricochet says he's not big and strong like Bobby Lashley, he doesn't have a gang like Seth Rollins, but what he does have is determination. He might as well put his ring on and went, Heart! Aleister Black takes on Eric Young. This match goes a bit longer than the last couple of times we've seen Ali Black take on some local talent, but the outcome is still the same. Black Mass and Aleister wins. After the match, Aleister speaks on the microphone and says that when he's done taking down the Raw locker room, it will be done by a man who was told he could be whatever he wanted to be because that drives relentless competition. Your guess is as good as mine. Humberto Carrillo's in the ring, and his opponent appears to be Angel Garza, who's not only the former NXT Cruiserweight Champion, but is also Humberto's shoot cousin. And he's accompanied by Zelina Vega, because hey, she's not suspended for 30 days. And so basically Zelina says, you know, you made this personal when you took out Andrade, so I'm bringing in your cousin as kind of a hired gun, so to speak. And so Angel on the microphone, he dogs on Humberto, calls him a disgrace to the family. Now he's leader of the family. Humberto snatches the mic out of Angel's hands. I love Garza's mannerisms in this promo, by the way, here. Humberto responds in Spanish, but Angel cuts him off, hits the wing clipper, and then goes to the old concrete DDT. Apparently, Andrade has just possessed Angel now, so he is acting through Angel's vessel at this point. Rey Mysterio makes a save, though, and yes, we're going to get Angel Garza versus Rey Mysterio after the commercial break. My body is ready. I do enjoy on commentary how Lawler, I dog Lawler a lot on this channel, but I'll give him credit where it's due. I like his observations lately on this show, especially this one where he says, you know what, cousins sometimes don't get along. Look at me and my cousin, the honky tonk man. We never see eye to eye. So that was a cool little reference there. This is a good match that you can tell they're really kind of holding a lot back, or they could put more out there in the matchup here. It ends in a DQ when Zelina makes the distraction. Angel with a super kick hits the hammerlock DDT on the exposed concrete, and the match is thrown out basically. Ray sells his neck and everything, and right, I'm going, again, we just saw this last week when Edge is beat up and he's holding his neck and he's twitching and everything and he hurts. Like, why are we doing this again? Edge and Mysterio, I know they have a history. They're former SmackDown Tag Team Champions, but they don't gotta have the same neck injury unless this is gonna just strangely lead to some weird tag team attraction with Edge and Mysterio going against Randy Orton and Angel Garza. I don't see that happening, so why would they do something that close to what happened with Edge last week? Again, I like what they're doing. I like seeing Angel Garza here replacing Andrade. I like seeing him wrestle Ray, but do we have to have the exact same stuff that we just saw last week with Edge and Orton, which was done better? It's time for Charlotte's choice. Which championship is she going to fight for at WrestleMania in Tampa? She gets a few words into her promo. She says she's already beaten Becky, she's beaten Bayley, and the crowd actually jumps the gun a bit here in this segment by chanting for Rhea Ripley. And sure enough, Rhea shows up live and in person, the NXT Women's Champion, to a big ovation. She gets in the ring and tells Charlotte, not only have you not beaten me, I have beaten you. So she challenges Charlotte to a match for the title at WrestleMania. Charlotte just kind of brushes her off, woos, and goes away. Obviously, not the last we'll hear from these two. And in fact, they announced later in the night that Charlotte's going to show up on NXT this week to address that challenge. And you know, not only is this match just is great on paper, I think it's great for Rhea Ripley, it's great for NXT and to add to their legitimacy. I mean, you could call this a demotion for Charlotte if you want, but I think that they've been trying a lot over the last half a year or so to really elevate NXT and treat them as they're not a developmental brand anymore. It's not a demotion for Charlotte to go back to NXT, because NXT is so different now than it was when she was there, and it's gotten so much stronger in a lot of ways. And honestly, Charlotte's done everything there is to do on Raw and SmackDown, I believe. You know, she said in the promo, 10-time women's champion. That's a lot of reigns, and so she's 6 away from tying her dad. So, you know, why not just have her go to NXT for what could be a little bit of time, could be a long amount of time, and have her just get some fresh opponents for a change and give her something like really good to sink her teeth into. I think that's there's a lot of great potential for Charlotte not only fighting Rhea Ripley, but also winning at WrestleMania and being the NXT Women's Champion. Again, that would be something, that's something for down the line though. That's just me kind of speculating openly here. But yeah, I'm really excited for the match with Charlotte and Rhea and curious to see how they build onto this on Wednesday. We're backstage with our last participant in the triple threat match tonight, Bobby Lashley, who says not only is he going to beat his two opponents tonight, he's going to beat Brock for the title at Super Showdown, then he's going to beat Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. Our next match is Asuka versus Natalya. Gets a little heated early on because you can see Natalya like fighting out of like a leg lock or a leg bar or something, calls Asuka a bitch and questions, you want to shoot on me? You want to shoot on me? So if there is real animosity in this matchup, it plays perfectly well into this match because it's a really good contest. It's very hard hitting, lots of good submission attempts. They're really going at it here. In the end, I think Kairi is supposed to trip Natalya up on the apron, but either the camera doesn't catch it or she just totally misses because it doesn't look like there's any contact there. She's nowhere near Natalya when that happens. So Natalya turns around, she eats an Asuka lock and taps out. So Asuka wins the hard-fought match. Then afterwards, she's on the microphone, challenges Becky Lynch to a rematch for the women's title. Becky shows up wearing some Deal With It shades, which looked so almost out of place, almost out of character, but I think she can pull it off. Anyway, Becky says, you know, beating you at the Rumble gave me superpowers, so let's do it one more time. And then she turns around and is able to thwart a Kairi Sane attack and turns back to Asuka and goes, see? Superpowers! And so then next week they're going to fight for the championship. Can't wait for that rematch. Main event time, triple threat match to see who will face Brock Lesnar for the championship at Super Showdown. Bobby Lashley, Ricochet, and Seth Rollins, who cuts a promo before the match begins, and he says, what a difference a year makes, because last year when I said I was going to beat Brock for the title, you all cheered me, and now it's a whole different story. But you know, he's a benevolent Monday Night Messiah. He says, even though you crucified me last year, I'm okay with it, and I'm going to win this championship for the greater good. Early on, the rest of the Messiah Maniacs show up to try and beat up Lashley and Ricochet. Out come Kevin Owens and Viking Eric to chase them off with steel chairs, so we're down to one-on-one again. It's a cool match, very interesting Tower of Doom near the end of this one. Not your typical like superplex thing here. Anyway, it ends when Ricochet hits the 630 on to Lashley and just goes ahead and wins the damn thing. I could not believe that. So he wins in kind of an upset. He's the one who had the determination after all. Then right after the match, Brock Lesnar shows up. He runs in the ring, hits Rico with an F5, holds the championship up as we fade to black. Very shocking way to end the show. Kind of confused as to where Lesnar was earlier during Drew McIntyre's thing. Just want to keep doing what he did last week, but be that as it may, really cool way to end the show here. Very surprising win for Ricochet here. Although at the same time though, it all makes sense based on what we saw the last couple of weeks. A few weeks ago when Brock kicked him in the dick, I kind of wrote it off and well, that's dumb. But then at the Royal Rumble, they tied back to that and had Ricochet hit Lesnar back in the dick, which allowed for him to get eliminated. And now we see Ricochet actually challenging Lesnar for the championship at Super Showdown. So did not see this coming at all. So I retract what I said a few weeks ago on the go home week to the Rumble. It didn't seem clear at first, but now you can tell maybe this is what they were going for all along. I don't like Ricochet's chances in Saudi Arabia, but again, we've said this before. Lesnar seems to work better with smaller guys. Flippy guys, I think, would be a good combination for him as well. And Ricochet is certainly a very flippy man. So that match I actually kind of am excited for. My final grade for this week's Raw is a B+. I wanted to give it an A- grade because honestly, I had fun watching this week's episode. I think it flowed really well. The matches were mostly great, and yeah, it just flew by for me. But there were a couple of things in the show that really stuck in my craw, and it was mostly Ruby Riott turning on Liv Morgan and Rey Mysterio getting the neck injury, as it were, against Angel Garza with the DDT. Two things which on their own, if they were in a bubble, would be fine storyline developments. But the problem is, it's just right after this far better done thing, like I said, between Orton and Edge last week. So two crucial elements: the surprise turn by a friend, and then the big neck injury or head injury or something. We saw that done last week, and now we see it's two less compelling children trying to do the same thing next week, and I think that's just too close to do too similar of a storyline plot twist or storyline development. Again, if this were done maybe 2 to 3 weeks later than this week, I would have forgiven it, but this one I think it was just like, why? Why do you do it this close to something we just saw and they made this huge deal of, and we got all the sad crowd shots last week, and we're just doing it again, and I think that was a little too much for me. That's why it knocked it down a little bit in the score overall. But besides those two things, I think it was overall very entertaining episode of Raw with a lot of big surprises I didn't see coming. But let me know what you thought about this week's Raw in the comments section below, and be sure to give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.